Camera ready.
Okay. Hello.
Good morning. How are
Good
you?
morning. I am okay. I'm okay.
We're ready to dig in?
Yes. We were, Casey and I like get on the podcast and then we quickly, lest you think we have this whole thing like fully planned out in advance, we usually figure out what we want to talk about the morning of,
5 minutes ago.
which I think is good because things can change all the
Yeah.
time. Companies we hate get acquired for millions of dollars. Shit happens, as they say.
We get embroiled in fights with
Yeah.
mansplainers on LinkedIn.
Right. Yeah. All sorts of stuff happens. But I was thinking today, like, I just feel like it's so easy to bitch and moan and complain about all the things. And I was kind of craving a podcast where we lean towards the more positive side of life. And I was thinking it could be fun because I don't really even know your full story. And I don't know if you know mine, but I thought it would be fun if we like dug back and talked a little bit about how we got into all of this in the first place. And I don't just mean like founding our agencies. I mean social media. I was at my college reunion this past weekend and my advisor was there and I was chatting with him. And so when I was in school, I was a sociology major. And he was my advisor because he was the only professor. So there was no media department, there was no communications department. And that was what I was really interested in. I ended up a sociology major because this guy Bill came in. My sophomore year was his first year teaching, and he was a media expert. And all the media related classes were in the sociology department taught by Bill. So he became my advisor, and I specifically picked sociology because of the media content. In 2006, they officially launched a media studies major that he is the chair of. So he and I were I was explaining to him that that's how I ended up sociology, and we were talking and reminiscing and all of that. But so I think that's why I'm thinking of this because back when we got started, I mean, social media wasn't a thing. It certainly wasn't something that either one of us studied in school. Right. This was not seen as a career. What we do now is nothing that we could have anticipated doing back when we were studying in college or even at our very first jobs. And so I thought it would be interesting to kind of go back in time.
Yeah.
We need a sound effect here.
And like we spin around and mystery machine. The closest I would say in my academic career was all about writing and literature. So I graduated undergrad with creative writing, I believe, and went on to grad school and got an MFA in screenwriting. I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. But when I did that, while at grad school, I made a student film with two other students.
Okay.
And ended up like really pushing. We hosted at Coolidge Corner in Boston. I don't know if you know, it's this great old timey theater. We hosted a premiere. I got the local radio station that was like the one that Howard Stern syndicated to. I knew the midday DJ, so he gave away tickets. We got into the Temecula Valley International Film Festival, so we got flown. The school flew us out to represent there. And the whole time, what I didn't realize was I love event planning and I'm an entrepreneur.
Okay.
But nobody ever said that. Like nobody, that's entrepreneurship. I think even back then maybe wasn't a course. So I had seeds of it, but I think sometimes my entire family looks at my academic trajectory and they're like, and she does what now? But I see the loose connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you get into social media? Because it wasn't, I mean, did you have a computer in college?
Oh, it's lurking around here somewhere. It's this big brick Mac.
Was it an LC2? I had the LC2.
It was a laptop.
Oh, you had a Oh, you're fancy.
It was refurbished laptop, and I'm telling you, somewhere it's leaching toxins. And my girls used to open it up and play, but it probably weighs 15 pounds. Yeah, so I had something. And I remember I worked at the graduate admissions office at the school, and the advent of, like, we had the intranet to process applications and whatnot, but there was one big shiny color Mac in the corner that had internet, like that had, and nothing was graphics. It was all text,
Yeah,
right? So
everything was it was like ASCII stuff. Like you had to type in like ASCII commands
yes, and
for things.
forward and back were the kind of commands. We're really dating ourselves. I'm not
Well,
sure.
and I was reminiscing with my friend Abby at this reunion because we had both, it was our senior year, and we had heard that there was this internet thing and you could meet people and you could talk to people all around the world. And they're like, we were like, oh, there's like this thing happening and you can communicate with people. And we knew this one guy who was using it, like
This one guy. Like previously, he was the one that put on the ride board, going to Vermont, and you'd hitch a ride with him.
This
Now
guy,
he's in a group
John,
chat.
Abby knew this guy, John, and she was like, I think he knows how to do all this stuff. And he actually worked at the computer center. And so we went, and it was like late one night, and she's like, he's working now. Let's go ask him what this thing is and how you do it. And we, like, this is so what a 21-year-old guy would do. So we went there late at night and we asked him what to do. And he's like, okay, here's what you do. You go to your computer and you do this and this, and then go to www.playboy.com.
The one website that is up.
And so that for Abby, that and me, that was our first website that we ever went to. So we like typed it in. She and I were joking. We typed it in. We sat back, read a book while it loaded. And that's the first website we went to. Oh. But yeah, we didn't. And then my first job out of school was for this really mean agoraphobic woman with a literary PR agency. So she did the overflow PR for business books. Okay. Mostly, I think, for Simon and Schuster. Okay. Like when there was a business book and they needed some extra PR outside of what their in-house team could do, they would outsource it to this woman. Okay. And so we were sending galley copies of these business books out to different publications, and we were doing it all from the basement of her house because she was agoraphobic. So that was where the office was.
Yeah.
But one of my... So I was like kind of interested in this thing that John told us about, not super interested in Playboy, although great articles, not super interested in that. But I was like, this is interesting, this thing that's happening. And one of the first books I worked on was The Woman's Guide to Online Services. Oh. And so I read that book, and it had all this information about AOL, CompuServe, The Well, Prodigy, and there was one more that I can't remember. Wow. And it explained what all of these were and how you used them. And I talked to the author, and I would call different radio stations and book her interviews and send out this book to places. But in the meantime, I was kind of devouring this book and learning how to do it and spending all this time on AOL in my free time.
Yeah. Oh, that'll do it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have to draw some parallels. My first job out of graduate school was with an awful husband and wife team, and I worked in their attic, not in their basement. And it was in the production world because I was that screenwriter, so I thought that would mesh. So we have that in common. But my awareness about social media and even tapping into it probably came in a much more circuitous fashion. So without boring you with the details, I had a home baking business at one point. Okay. And I was licensed through the state of Pennsylvania, and I did frozen. This was like I am going to tell you the details, I guess. It's based on having kids and looking at ingredient labels and being a baker myself, and those two things coming together and wanting to create something better. So this is when there was only like Pillsbury slice and bake in the refrigerated aisle, right? There was
Gotcha.
no immaculate baking, no Lauren's, no nothing. So I started just scooping and freezing cookie dough, making trays of brownies, all this, and developed quite a nice following in my area. This is like 2005,
Okay.
maybe. And I was a stay-at-home mom doing that. And social media for me was the outlet while I was home and bored to tears and looking for some community. Twitter just started. I was never really a Facebook person, but Twitter was great. It was like this group chat. And then to tie it into business, I learned that I launched a website for my products. I was featured in Cool Mom Pics. Do you remember Cool Mom Pics?
We represented Cool Mom Pics.
Worlds collide.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I shipped them product. They featured me one time before the holidays. It was like, it's all happening.
Yeah.
So around that time, I launched a website and I learned that Google liked fresh content. But on a website, you're not changing your content that often. That's a blog. And so I started trying my hand at a blog that was food-based. And there's a little more to this story. On the personal side, I'd actually gone through a really rough period of trying to have my second daughter. And I didn't know it was going to be a daughter, my second child, and having a lot of pregnancy loss actually along the way. And through that, finding a community of women, writers who had blogs that were blowing my mind. These women were so vulnerable and real, and they just made me feel so much better at a time that I was really struggling.
Yeah.
So fast forward, when Google said, fresh content, I knew what blogging was from the reproductive infertility side. But then I discovered food bloggers, and I was like, oh my goodness. And my brain so for 35 minutes, I tried to be a food blogger.
Yeah.
And I learned about taste spotting, food gawker, photo grazing.
Did you spend time on eGullet? I was a big eGullet person.
No, I don't know that I know eGullet.
So similarly around the same time, because my son was born in 2005, and that's when I really got into blogging. So I was using social media all the time on my own. Before we had any kids, I was very active on the AOL message boards, and that's my name. It was like mom to like wine. We had a Weimaraner, and I was very, very active in the Weimaraner, like visiting these people around the country, like very active in that community. And then I had my daughter, and I joined a Yahoo group with all moms who were due November of 2001. And I'm still friends with some of them to this day.
Yes.
So I was like just doing these community. I loved the community aspect of it.
Bingo.
Mm-hmm. And then my husband was working at General Motors, and he started their first blogs and was working with like Bob Lutz, who's a big executive, famous in Detroit, General Motors. We're all like started a blog with him, did like a small block engine. There's some car term. I think it's small block engine blog. He was doing all that, and he was like, you should start a blog. Like, you love writing. And I had been trying to like break into food writing. I was sending pitches to Saveur magazine. I had been a food writer when we lived in Ann Arbor in the 90s. I was writing articles for a monthly alternative Toledo newspaper when we lived there. And nothing was really hitting. And I was like, well, I just kind of like writing about this stuff. So I started a food blog in 2005, right around the time I had my son. And like the mom thing is really similar to you. That's what really drew me. I mean, I was writing about food stuff, but I think the first time I ever got like big traffic, I was someone mentioned me on Blogging Baby. Do you remember Blogging Baby?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I was doing that. I gained a little bit of a following, but it was really like connecting with these other moms who had babies around the same age, and just not feeling like you were alone, because it's such a lonely.
Yes. Agreed.
Like being home, like there's so many like infertility is awful, and you feel alone, and then you finally have a baby, and you're like, wow, why did I even want this? It's terrible.
Right. What Mack truck just ran my life as I knew it
Yeah.
over?
So yeah, just that connection thing and the community
Yes.
piece, but
Yeah.
food blogging was not. I kind of ended up realizing that I much preferred marketing and figuring out how to
Yep.
help these brilliant women make more money.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
I wanted to make my money that way by helping them to make money. I did not want to be
You didn't want your
creating the content.
content to
Yeah.
be, yeah, the pipeline. I remember being on my couch and so with the taste spotting and food gawker thing, I tried submitting photos to those for my business still. I had professional photography for these products. Some of them made it through, some of them didn't. And if you remember, those sites would give you feedback like low lighting or white balance off. And the more I engaged with the community of food bloggers, I realized there's this club of food bloggers who always get their stuff accepted.
Yeah.
Oh, they're like the favorites. And then there's these other really pissed off food bloggers because this was a big driver of traffic back in the day, huge. So they'd be like, what do they know about white balance? Like none of them are photographers. Why are they commenting? Blah, blah, blah. So my wheels start spinning and I'm like, there's an opportunity here. So I launched this tongue-in-cheek site called Taste Stopping. And I would take all the rejected food photography and post it with New York Post style headlines, like making fun of the sites, making fun of the bloggers themselves. I called it like group therapy for food bloggers. Everybody got so excited, happy, because like, yeah, let's stick it to them, or somebody's publishing my thing, and then that led me to. I got some press coverage, some like Serious Eats or one of those back in the day covered it. I got invited to a food blogger conference in Southern California to present a rejected food photography session.
Okay.
And this, I didn't realize this would be so formative. I sat in this room at this rustic camp, and there was a panel of PR people. Sir Latab, Edelman, I think, was there. Lindsay Olives had their PR person there. So panel of PR people and a room full of food bloggers. And this one woman stood up, and I know her to this day, and I adore her for this. And she was just like, free products, do not put braces on my kids' teeth or send them to private school. Like, what are we doing? Where's the money? Let's go.
Yeah.
And the whole room felt like really silent. And the PR people were like pissed, and the bloggers were pissed. And in that moment, I was like, oh, I can bridge this gap. I can pitch they weren't influencers. I can pitch the bloggers, research them. I knew them all from what I've been doing.
Right.
I know them. I can get their background. I can pitch them to the brands, run the programs. They won't even know they're being pitched, so there's no rejection involved. If I get rejected, I don't care. I'll go to the next one. And literally in that moment, I went to all the PR people there, shared my idea, and I had handshake deals with all of them by the time it was done.
So this is so interesting. So you got into the agency space by engaging the PR people, and it was all in the food world.
Yeah, started in food
I
and
ended
beverage.
up getting into it. I was working at Edelman and building all this influencer business, which again we call mom blogger stuff, but blogger stuff. And I was like, this is so messy, and like no one's doing this right, and these women aren't being paid what they deserve, and like similar to you, I can fix this. But what I did was I had a conflict of interest with Edelman where I couldn't go out and engage these influencers while I was still there. So I had a friend in the space, and I had my spring break coincided with the Mom 2.0 summit. So I wasn't going to be there, but she was going to be there. And we came up with this little NDA and like commitment, like letter of intent. And we made a list of 25 mom bloggers who we wanted to bring on board. And I kind of borrowed the model of a talent agency. And so the thinking was like, okay, I'm going to get all these people on board, and they're being approached nonstop by brands and by agencies, and they don't know what to charge, and they don't want to be negotiating, and they just want to focus on creating their content.
Right.
So I'm going to tell them if they, give me and this new entity I'm creating 15 to 25% for anything that we negotiate on their behalf. And we sign this exclusive deal with them where anything they get, they bring through us to negotiate.
Okay.
I'm going to create this business. And so I went on my vacation and my friend went down to the Mom 2 Summit with this stack of papers and this list of 25. And I did some, like, I still remember, I literally like did some really bad math on the back of a receipt on my night table. Like, okay, well, 15% of this, and this is how much we're paying. And I came up with some cockamamie back of receipt business plan where
You're a billionaire, clearly.
I say I realized, but I realized nothing in retrospect. But like I determined that if she could get 10 of them to sign up, that would be enough for me to quit my high paying SVP job at Edelman and start this thing. And she got all 25.
Wow. So you were a first mover in that space, in that, not just the agency.
Like the talent management.
Yeah.
Which,
and
really then
early.
A few years after that, we kind of realized that model is not right for us because we need brands and agencies to come back over and over again. And so our first, yes, we want to take care of influencers all day long. Yes, we want to make sure that they're paid fairly. Yes, we want to make sure that their voices are elevated. But like you can't.
To do that.
You can't. You have to answer to one side or the other. You can't answer to both the influencers and to the brands because there's just conflicts of interest. Like if I have a brand come to me and they're like, oh, we need someone for this thing. And I know that I haven't given Rebecca work in a month and she's supporting her family. Like I might put her forward to that brand, even though she's not the best choice.
Right.
If I like, you just can't really
serve both masters.
Thank you for coming up with the verb that was not entering my brain. So we stopped representing people exclusively and totally changed our business
How long did it
model.
take for you to get to that, where the back of that napkin or the back of that receipt was like, this ain't working?
Pretty quickly, we realized that like 15% of these deals, it wasn't going to cover. Like if you talk to PE firms or VC, like they expect any agency to have a net profit, like an EBITDA of 15 to 20%. If all you're getting is 15%, and then you also have to pay employees and you need, and all the stuff that's part of your overhead, insurance, software, computers, all of that stuff, and you want to pay your, like, there is no world in which you have a 15 to 20% EBITDA if you're doing that.
Right.
So that we realized pretty quickly. We also realized that you couldn't, because I had relationships in the agency world, we were getting all these requests that we couldn't fulfill with the small group. Like we started with 25 and then I think at its height, we had about 60 bloggers / influencers that we were representing, but we would get, I always tell this story because it was the most ludicrous request we got, that I had this client who wanted moms who shop at Kroger who have kids between the ages of 8 and 12 who still wet the bed. Like you're not going to find that in a group of 60.
Right. Or you've got a very interesting group.
Yeah.
Something's in the water.
Or, a new frozen soup line is launching and they want 200 blog posts to go live in 1 week.
Right.
Like, so we were getting like really specific requests and then we were getting really high volume requests.
Right.
And, less so the like, I can't serve two masters. There was also this issue of we can't scale in the way that we need to with this model.
Right. I remember launching under the premise that we would take one brand's product per month and feature it in a progressive party. So there were 6 courses, 6 influencers, one assigned each course, which was a lot of fun for a while, but also not scalable if there was just one per month. And it took me a minute to say, you can run 2 per month. You can, there's more here. And then like, for instance, Lindsay Olive's, that dessert course was tricky. What did you do? She nailed it. And I will forever be indebted to that blogger, recipe blogger, and she did it with, a kind heart around it.
It's like
So
that's like a Chopped or a Top Chef challenge.
a little bit, yeah. And
Yeah.
so there were a lot of iterations over those first couple of years of how
Yeah.
to best serve the brand. And like you and I both know, agencies were coming to us a lot to run their programs because they hadn't built up their business units, their departments for influencer. And that pendulum is swinging back where the overflow is now coming to agencies like yours and mine. But yeah, a lot of experimenting, a lot of work in the cookbook world,
Oh,
that kind of,
interesting.
yeah, the International Association of Culinary Professionals was a big, I remember going to that year when I could go, like when it was, I could afford
I
it.
went
And
to their conference in Baltimore one year. I think it was before I had kids. So
oh, that was before my time
in the
there.
night in the
Yep.
yeah, early
And
2000s,
they
late
were,
90s.
it was great for the type of people they brought in. And that
Mm-hmm.
was my scene for a while. I have not
Yeah.
been back there in quite a bit. But I love the food and beverage space. And
Yeah.
it's interesting to see how, like, when you think back, those are some big changes. Are there other things that you look back and go, oh, wow, remember we used to do that? Like Twitter parties,
Twitter. I was just gonna say Twitter part. Like what?
bread and butter.
What were we? What was?
It was just like a lot of noise for an hour, a lot of noise, or
Yeah.
however long it was scheduled for.
Yeah.
Just did you ever have clients that wanted to be on the phone with you while you were running one of those parties? I would always say, no, I can't. I've got to focus on what's
I
happening.
never had to run them, thank goodness.
Okay.
My
We were in it.
My
Yeah.
partners were doing
Okay.
that just because they were better at that than I was.
It's a lot.
But yeah, like that was a weird thing. We're starting to do more of this again, but or like we're starting to see some interest in it. But for a while there, we would do like actual house parties.
Yeah.
Remember there was that company house party?
Yes.
And so we would
Yeah.
like we did one for Graco car seats, and we had like 50 events across the country, and these moms were inviting all of their mom friends with babies, and everyone got a car seat, and we had all these parties happening simultaneously. We did one for a paper towel client,
Nice.
and we hosted this whole party. And I remember the client, it was like this super young agency client, and she thought it was supposed to be a play. She wrote a whole script for it. And she wanted the influencers to say certain lines, and we had to explain like, no, like we're setting up this kind of Instagrammable environment, and like it's an actual party. Like they don't have lines that they're
Right.
saying.
Right. Interesting. My thing just went dead. I remember live experiential. We did, I think I mentioned we worked with Unreal, the candy company. And I think we
I
did.
did. Yes, we talked about that because we pitched them, and apparently we lost it to you.
And it's funny because I don't remember. I don't think you did lose it to us. Hold on. I'm going to put this back. I don't think you did lose it to us because I don't remember pitching it. Like it wasn't an RFP.
It wasn't an RFP, but we
Okay.
did a call. We did a call with that client.
Okay.
It was a woman agency,
Yes. Okay.
like a one woman agency or something. And we got her like a 1-page
Okay.
MS Word doc proposal or something. Yeah,
Okay.
it wasn't like an official RFP.
Got it. Got it. I just remember that Halloween season, one of the perks or, negotiated deliverables is them shipping me so much candy. And my job was to hand it out to all my friends and neighbors so that it was a grassroots, and it's good candy. So it was
We
fine.
used to, my business partners used to run Bloggy Boot Camp. And one year, Tide Pens sponsored, and they sent so many pens. And so we suddenly found ourselves with like 500 Tide Pens left over. And I don't remember why, but they shipped them to my house. And so I had all these boxes of Tide Pens in my living room in Chicago.
Yep.
And my brother was living with me at the time, and he's like way more of an entrepreneur, wheeler dealer than I am. Like I do not call myself an entrepreneur. Like,
Okay.
I have no interest in ever starting a company ever again. But he's like, he was the guy who we grew up near the beach, and he'd be like selling Snapples out of a cooler.
Got it. Yep.
He once sold speakers out of the back of a some guy's truck. So he was living with me at the time, and I was like, dude, we have like these boxes of Tide pens. You got to figure something out. He somehow found some warehouse in Chicago that bought them.
Oh my God. That is really great. I'm trying to think of, did you ever, there were times when very early on when I made trades. So I didn't work for money. I worked for products. So I've been there, done that.
Like as I did that as a blogger. I got a 1 week trip for my whole family to a really nice resort in Mexico.
That is way better than what I negotiated. I negotiated $600 or $900, I don't know, of Wilton products because I was a baker.
Yeah.
So I now have the souped up, like everything, the piping kit, the turntable, and back at that point, I was a stay-at-home mom. So I was like, it's fine. I knew it wasn't a
amazing.
good
Yeah.
business move in a sense, like I wasn't going to stay in that space, but I did that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of I was going to tell you other funny, like what do you remember from back in the day that you did that you wouldn't do again?
Oh, so many things. I was just reminiscing with my daughter because Bethany Frankel's been in the news a ton lately, and I'm not exactly following why, but I said we did a thing with her. We brought two of our bloggers I met them. One came in from California, one lived in New York. I flew into New York, and they filmed a commercial with Bethany Frankel, and I don't even remember what it was about. I remember that she was kind of mean. Oh. I don't remember, though, what it was about.
Interesting. So that's fun.
That was a funny.
She's back in the news.
Back in the news.
One of my proudest moments was we were tapped by one of Avocados for Mexico's agencies. They have tons. Somebody reached out to us in preparation for Blog Her, or maybe it was Blog Her Food. Remember when that was huge? And they didn't. The backstory is those conferences grew so fast and became so ubiquitous and powerful. The sponsorship fees were astronomical. Yeah. So brands that didn't want to pay that would send influencers in and get coverage, have those influencers sort of wheel and deal with other influencers. I think, so we were tapped to find influencers to send to that event as Avocados from Mexico, like under the dark of night, in a sense, like off the radar, which is totally not allowed by the sponsorship. Yeah. And so we came up with the Avocados from Mexico pit crew. And the pit crew was, you go to those conferences and you're exhausted, your breath stinks, your phone dies, you're this, that, and the other, you're cold. So we equipped, I think, 3 to 5 bloggers, I don't remember how many, with T-shirts that said they were part of the pit crew and bags filled with like teeth flossers and breath fresheners and gum and just all this stuff. And they would just on their channel say, hey, I'm here at this event. If you need a charger, I've got one for you. If you need a brownie, that we had avocado brownies. Oh, it caused such a problem. Like, and my agency contact had cleared it with the powers that be at that event, who did not check it out with the head honcho, who was like looking for our people to kick them out. It was like very tense.
Very controversial. We used to, at a lot of those, at all the bloggers, we would, I think we did it at a couple of Mom Twos also, when we still had this smaller roster of mom bloggers who were all pretty popular and well-known and like had, this like celebrity status. And a lot of them are very shy. Like they're sitting at home writing. They're not like Hollywood celebrities. And so they'd show up at these conferences and it would be incredibly overwhelming to them because people would come up and touch them and ask them about their kids by name and like knew all these stories about their family and but kind of like creepy parasocial. So what we would do at the conferences is and we got in trouble for this too, we would set up a cabana off site. Like if there was a pool, I would rent a cabana for the whole time, or I remember there was like a Blog Her New York. I rented an entire really large suite at the hotel, and I would basically set up a green room space for everyone who was just on our roster, decompress. And they could just and we wouldn't even I wouldn't go to the conference at all. I was just
support for them,
host, hanging out in the green room and sitting there. Such a great idea. They could bring their swag bags and like hide out from people, and you had to be invited up, and those were kind of fun days.
And it ran afoul because the event planners wanted those celebrities in the mix.
Well, and
sort of
they
the draw.
wanted, like, they saw what I was doing kind of as a sponsorship. Like, they wanted
Yeah.
me to pay them
Right.
for the cabana.
Right. Yeah. Oh, so we both have a little rebellious streak in us or
Right.
irreverence going on.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
It was scrappy. Like it's not as scrappy these days, which, and to your point, that social, that community, I think that's still there and why I fight so much on LinkedIn with people because in this rush for performance data and conversion and sales, we're really missing the beauty of influencer, which has its roots in blogger. Oh, like here I am. We're supposed to tell our origin stories and I'm proselytizing. But it was so formative back then.
Well, and that we were like, you were meeting people in the comment section.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people I'm still friends with to this day. And
My entire Facebook account, I don't have friends or family from my in real life. It is all business related and it was all the food bloggers really from back in the day.
Yeah.
Do you remember going to any event and being like, oh, hey, Fuji Mama? Like you don't know their actual name. You just know their blog name or their Twitter handle.
Yeah. It's funny. I always, like one part of my insane morning phone routine, which has, I dialed it back a little bit because it was taking me like 2.5 hours. So it's now an hour, my phone morning routine. But part of it is looking at the Facebook memories that come up. And there's always, like I was looking this morning and it was like meeting City Mama and Sassafras Jess for a drink.
Yes. Yeah. And then the unintended envy of me seeing your post and being like, oh, they're having so much fun. Like, I don't know. I loved those days. I thought early Twitter, early Facebook were really inspirational, hopeful places. I think the live event circuit lended to a lot of in-person connection, which I'm hopeful we're getting back to now.
Yeah. And I see a lot of that community. I think that community is happening now in Slack.
Yeah, sure.
In Slack communities, Discord communities. Like I think people do crave community in that way. And, we're not finding it anymore in the comment section of blogs, but
right.
I don't know. I just think human nature is you figure out a way to create that.
Yeah, I hope so. And I hope I want to be part of it. I think you want to be part of it. I think we are part of it. So that was a fun trip down memory lane.
Yes, thank you.
We have more in common than we even really knew.
Yeah, totally kooky.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
It's good to talk to you.
More next week.
Bye.
Bye.